Hello! Today I want to talk about something that is asked often but in very different ways. So one example is, Teacher, bakit yung anak ko laging nagfa-flap ng kanyang kamay at paano ko siya patitigilin? This question has many versions, so replace flapping hands to rocking back and forth, or ikot siya ng ikot, or tumitingin siya sa gilid ng kanyang mata. These behaviors are what we refer to as Stims or Stimming, and that's short for self-stimulatory behaviors. And there are different reasons for why a child or an individual could be doing these, and that's what we'll talk about today. Kaya tara, usap tayo. Let's get talking. Hi! If you're new here, I'm Teacher Kaye and I'm a certified speech-language pathologist. Today, I'm going to talk about Stims or Stimming, which actually madalas ko nang napag-usapan in my live streams, and I've also touched on it a little bit in my videos on autism. Like I said, it is short for self-stimulatory behaviors, which leads us to the first reason why a child or an individual could be doing this. It is to stimulate the self. So you might ask, yeah, but why? Why do you need to stimulate the self? Because there are people who are neurodivergent. That means yung brain nila medyo lumihis sa pagdevelop in the typical manner. And so they don't receive and process information in the way that neurotypical individuals do. So for people who are neurodivergent, they could have sensory processing difficulties. So let's talk about sensory processing. Sensory, meaning gamit ang ating senses. Now we have our usual 5. That is our sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. But there are other senses like our vestibular sense, which happens in our inner ear. This is the sense that controls our balance and our movement. This is the same sense that malfunctions with people who have vertigo. Yung mga parang konting galaw lang nila, sabi nila hilong-hilo na sila. So this is the vestibular sense. There's also the proprioceptive sense, which is the awareness of our body in space. Knowing where our body parts are, how to coordinate them for movement, and how much force or pressure to apply on things. Yan ang ating proprioceptive sense. We also have our interoceptive sense, and that is the awareness of our bodily functions. Like knowing kapag, gutom na pala ako, or uhaw na pala ako, or kailangan ko na palang magwiwi. So people with sensory processing issues may be under-responsive or over-responsive to the information that we receive from the environment. And that short background just answers the question of, so why do people need to self-stimulate? So usually it is done by individuals who are seeking more stimulation, meaning they are under-responding to the information or stimuli that the environment is giving or providing for them. So parang they want more. So we call this sensory seeking behaviors. Now, if you are seeking sensory stimulation, that is when, if you cannot get it from the environment, ako na lang yung gagawa. I will stimulate myself, and thus we have our self-stimulatory behaviors. So to make it a little clearer, I will give you exact examples per sense that I talked about. So if you need stimulation from your sense of sight, there are people who like to stare at shiny objects or blinking lights or things that are continuously spinning. If you want to stimulate your sense of smell, then there are also people who try to smell everything. If you introduce a new item to them, pwedeng kahit anong ipakita nyo sa kanila, gusto nilang amuyin. Aamuyin nila yung food, aamuyin nila yung pader, aamuyin nila yung pencil na ipahiram mo. Similar to those who stimulate by smelling everything, yung mga nagsisik naman ng taste stimulation could try to lick everything. They want to taste everything that you show them. Now, what about children that are seeking stimulation from their sense of hearing? Minsan napapansin natin na ito yung mga batang dumidikit talaga sa speakers para marinig nila yung music very close to their ear, which could be dangerous for their hearing, but hindi nila yung napapansin because they want that stimulation. Children who need touch or tactile stimulation may be the ones that always try to keep pinching themselves. Paulit-ulit, pinipinch nila everywhere in their body or one specific area. Now, for the vestibular sense, these are the ones na mahilig either umikot in a chair or tatakbo ng paikot-ikot, or ito nung mahilig sa mga swing, yung talagang the higher, the better, the faster the swing, the happier they are. For children naman with proprioceptive seeking, so sometimes it may seem like your child is just so sweet, gusto niya laging hinahug, but it could possibly be na sobrang gusto niya kasi ng proprioceptive stimulation, nung pressure na nabibigay ng hugs. So the first reason is if they are seeking stimulation, so they will stimulate themselves. The next reason is because they are self-regulating. Regulating is when you try to find balance. So ways to self-regulate, for example, our feelings, diba? If there's something that makes us feel bad, we try to think of good things para matakpan yung feel bad. And it's just the same way with self-regulation for neurodivergent children or individuals. So in short, it's kind of like a coping mechanism. So it's something that they do to calm them when they're frustrated or angry or feeling uncomfortable. And the third reason that they could be doing this is simply self-expression. Not everyone is good at expressing what they're thinking or they're feeling, and that's just the same with neurodivergent individuals. So siguro if a neurotypical person will say things like, "Oh, I'm so happy, thank you." That's how they express their happiness or their gratitude. It could be that a neurodivergent person will express this by flapping their hands, smiling, and then hugging you. So that could just be their self-expression. It could also be just by swaying back and forth, and that shows that they're happy. So I guess this is where our detective work comes into action again. So when we see self-stimulatory behaviors or stimming in our kids, we want to be aware of when they do it so that we could possibly know bakit kaya nila ginagawa. Why could they be doing it? So it will help us understand better, are they doing this to calm themselves down? Are they doing this to satisfy missing stimuli? Or are they doing this to communicate something or to express something? And the answer to the question, paano ko siya patitigilin? Let's try not to make them stop. We don't have to make them stop. So unless the behavior is self-injurious, nasasaktan yung sarili nila, or nakakasakit ng iba, or could endanger anyone or anything, that is the only time that we should try to change or replace the behavior with something that could be more productive for them. But if it doesn't hurt anyone and you can see that it is the way that they deal with their feelings, how they self-regulate, then we just let them be. So hindi natin sila titigilin just because nakakahiya silang tingnan sa neurotypical people or people who may not understand. No, we just let them because that is the natural way that their brains have showed them how to function and to deal with situations that they are presented with. Now, baka may makapansin sa inyo, bakit ni minsan hindi ko sinabi about autism or autistic lang ba yung gumagawa nito? And that's because no, this is not limited to just the autistic. Naging very linked lang siya to autism because these repetitive behaviors are very common to the autistic, but it is not limited to them. So anyone with a sensory processing disorder or difficulties could stim now and then. So, uulitin ko lang para klaro sa ating lahat, do we try to stop children from stimming? And my response is, unless nakakasakit sa sarili at sa iba, please allow them to stim if it helps them deal with uncomfortable situations or it makes them happy or it helps them express themselves. Now, baka may mga concerns na, pero kasi teacher, hum siya ng hum kahit kinakausap siya, so baka hindi siya sa akin nakikinig. But we don't know that. But you can answer that for yourself by checking, trial and error. Talaga bang hindi siya nakikinig when he's humming? Or talaga bang hindi siya nakikinig kapag paulit-ulit nung hand flapping niya? It could also possibly be na the hand flapping is helping them process better because it calms them down. So just something to think about when you deal with your child's stimming. So I hope that we can move on from the idea that we should stop these stimming behaviors just because it doesn't look normal. And move toward the thinking that just there is this world where hindi lahat ng tao pare-pareho. May mga ibang tao that were born differently and have different capacities, and it should just make us more considerate and more understanding and more accepting of the different ways that different people do things. So ang importante naman lagi is happy and healthy tayo lahat, and that's how I'll end today. So if you found this information new or helpful, please share it with others para may iba pang maliwanagan. And if you have comments or other questions or clarifications, feel free to message me on my Facebook and Instagram at Teacher Kaye Talks. And hanggang sa muli, happy talking and mabuhay!